Hey there. Ritual here to give a big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. The magic of those family moments, that was you. And now there's new milestones to prep for in 2025. This new year, check clean, quality pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list with Ritual. We've done the research to create science-backed pregnancy support like our prenatal multivitamin, natal choline, and fertility support, all designed to be taken alongside each other. But don't just take our word for it. They're also third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals and Clean Label Project certified. So whether you're trying, thinking about trying, or already there, we don't have to tell you that prioritizing yourself can be the hardest part. That's why we're helping you get started today with 30% off a 3-month supply for a limited time at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome once again to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. It is Thursday. It is June 22nd, the year of our Lord 2017. Because it's Thursday, that means it's the aftermath, which is, as everyone knows, all the shite that I couldn't fit into the Tuesday show and I didn't address for whatever stupid reason or combination of reasons extant on the Sackheads radio show last night on Wednesday. Belly up to the bar, we have kept your seat. It's nice and warm. Oh my God, it's nice and warm. And not because I've been sitting in it for... It's the fiery breath of Sacramento hell. It's global warming. Oh, wait, it's June 22nd. That means it's summer. In summertime, it's hot as hell. In Sacramento, Fornicalia, the belly of the beast. Oh, that's right. Dink is gonna be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them. And if you're live on YouTube, go there for SHR Media. Go to the SHR page in YouTube, and you'll find that it's live right now. Just enter in Berserk Bobcat Saloon, and you'll find what's happening right now this very moment. The lava lamp. If you're on YouTube, you can go over there, and you can see it is in fact lighted. We don't water our drinks, just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. Although we ask just a few things, just a few meager things when you come into the Saloon. Flush the toilet. Jiggle the handle. Don't forget to tip your waitress. And of course, because Dink will be... this is it's mostly self-enforcing. But occasionally, someone will forget. Stay out of Mary Brockman's chair, would you please? Now, tonight, in the Saloon, I've got sort of a unique situation going on. I'll explain it. I'm going to have Tami Jackson of the Tami Jackson Show and Right Voice Media coming on at 9 o'clock. Now, that's 9 o'clock on the left coast. That's midnight on the right coast. And in Bolivia, it's 17:47 and 179 seconds. So we're going to have a full first hour full of politics, and then for those of you who just tuned in, a bit of Islam and politics. And then Tami Jackson will be joining us at the top of the hour at 9 p.m. And this is kind of odd because she sort of works for a competitor media. I don't mind mentioning them. She works for the 405media.com. And everybody who's on internet radio has to somewhere along the line make a choice. To whom are you going to be aligned? And I don't think I'm speaking out of school when I say this as well. I had some choices to make in terms of where I was going to go because I had already solicited a number of different folks as to where I'm going to go. And I had a pretty good idea that I had some good content to deliver, and it was just a matter of spiffing up my technological skills. Yes, I actually said that. BZ, technological skills? Right. Anyway, I had to get them all spiffed up, and I had a bunch of places that I could go. One of the things that a lot of folks told me is, and I was kind of surprised how many people told me this, they almost all said, stay away from Blog Talk Radio. And that's odd because that's one of the first places that I was looking at. And then I started asking around, and folks were saying, oh, Blog Talk Radio. Hey, wait a minute. You can't shoot me in the head like that so soon because that's where I was thinking about going. Okay. Then I didn't go to Blog Talk Radio. Then I was thinking about a few other places, and I was actually thinking about the 405 until I met Sean, Saghead Sean, on Twitter, of all places. And then I discovered the SHR Media Network, and oddly enough, he happened to be living in the same stupid town that I am, and that's where our studio is right now. We are about literally 2 miles, maybe 3 miles at the most, from the Bill Mill, the belly of the beast in Sacramento, Fornicalia. Oh, my God. It's like leftist central here. And I'm going to tell you about one initial story tonight because I've got to tell you this. Just leftist hypocrisy does not ever stop. Just when you think it might stop and you're snoozing at night and you're having some nice dreams, fevered or not, then you realize, wait a minute. No. Leftists are working overtime to be as hypocritical as possible. Doubt me not. And I'm going to have the story to prove it. Then I was talking about the state of Fornicalia. And, I've got a very interesting article that just came out of, I think it's called The State Worker. Wait, I use that word very loosely, worker. I should probably say something similar to the state occupant. State workers, they have a seat. If they have a job that has a seat, they occupy that seat. Work, okay, there I've gone and offended all the state workers in Fornicalia. But that would be also my wife. She knows, I love you, dear. I love you desperately. But you already knew that. I'm just making fun of the state, right? Uh-huh. Of course I am. Hey, already, in chat, look, we have Whiskey Dale, a betrayer of the Tribbles, has dribbled over to the chat room. And
big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. This new year, get clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list, including Ritual's best-selling Essential Prenatal Multivitamin, designed with 12 traceable key ingredients to support a healthy pregnancy. With big changes coming up, take the small steps now and start today with 30% off a 3-month supply at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Hey there. Ritual here to give a big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. The magic of those family moments, that was you. And now there's new milestones to prep for in 2025. This new year, check clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list with Ritual. We've done the research to create science-backed pregnancy support like our prenatal multivitamin, natal choline, and fertility support, all designed to be taken alongside each other. But don't just take our word for it. They're also third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals and Clean Label Project certified. So whether you're trying, thinking about trying, or already there, we don't have to tell you that prioritizing yourself can be the hardest part. That's why we're helping you get started today with 30% off a 3-month supply for a limited time at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Whiskey Dale, every time I see you, it's grand to see you. Mike is in chat. Dave Milner, the unpleasant blind guy who isn't. Now, I'm not saying he's not blind. I'm just saying that when he quantifies himself as unpleasant, he's actually rather pleasant, but don't tell him I said that, please. And we have 2 viewers in chat. Whiskey says, hello. And Mike asks, how hot is it in the studio? Thank you for asking. This is kind of strange. 3 weeks ago, it got kind of warm outside. It was maybe 90, 95 or so. That's not terrible. But for whatever reason, at that point in the studio, because I'm just lucky that way, coming in on Tuesdays, I first came in and it was reprehensible in the studio. It's like I had to turn it on to cool. It wasn't functioning. It was my God, I just, well, you know, I'm a Zeppelin because I'm not thin and lithe, hence bloviating and Zeppelin. You know that by now. But man, I tell you what, I had a stream flowing down my back into my ass crack because it was so damn hot in here. And then when it gets really, really hot outside, actually there's a nice vent down here that I'm feeling. And it's pretty nice in here. I'm a little shocked, but I'm really, really happy because me and heat, we're not like that. We are not kumbaya. So, what? Where do I live? I live in Sacramento, which is allergy central in the spring. People say if you come to the Sacramento Valley from anywhere on the planet, even from out of the galaxy, from Zephron. I know a couple of folks from Zephron, and they find Cali, quite nice because of its leftist bent. But in any event, you can come here from anywhere in the galaxy, anywhere in the United States of America, and find out that if you didn't have allergies, you're going to have them in about 2 or 3 weeks once you inhabit a Sacramento Valley spring. Lovely. So right now, at least, thank God, or as leftists say, thank Gaia, that it's really rather nice in the studio to the point where it's almost a little bit cooler in the studio than my wife's house. On the other hand, that's not saying a hell of a lot. And anyway, welcome to chat, folks. I'm at bloviatingzeppelin.net. I sent out a bunch of tweets today. I'm at BZEP, same for Gab, although I haven't been on Gab for a while. I'm at BZEP on gab.ai. I'm on Facebook, but you know me in technology. I've not quite yet figured out the Facebook thing. And I know that comes as a complete shock. Here's the other thing. Now, last time on Tuesday, I had Kill Fritzy, who is the Canadian infidel, on the air for at least an hour. I think it was about 90 minutes. And we spoke. She was over the telephone. And I hadn't quite, and for those of you who listened to Sackheads last night, you determined, and I found out because Sean told me there's a little button down here at the lower left-hand portion of the laptop. You can't see it, but I'm pointing to it right there. And I had to click that button. And then once I clicked that button, it was okay. All was well. So I made a test to see if that was going to be okay. Well, you know what? This thing automatically goes back to off. I'm going to have to watch that because I clicked it on. I made a test phone call because I found out from Sean how to do that. So I called into this, and I'm finding out that it looks like the default for this stupid thing is to go off. So I just had to go in there, and I'm going to have to watch that thing, that little son of a bitch right there. I'm going to have to watch that very carefully. But anyway, I made a phone call, and it works. So my apologies, my grand apologies. He's not in here. But if White Mamba comes in, my grandest apologies to White Mamba because he got cut off the telephone system twice when I couldn't make it real well. Mike, I have figured it out, so if you ever call in again, I figured that out, and thank God for Tami Jackson. She's going to have that, and I feel real bad about Kill Fritzy last Tuesday, and moreover, for the people that have to listen to the show, but God, I have to really watch myself because the default for this stupid thing is apparently for the speaker icon to click off. Heavy sigh. Okay, first article. Just before I come here, I go through all the news. And I look at Drudge and Breitbart, and I look at NPR, I look at British, UK media, etc., all sorts of places. BBC, yes, I go to anti-Beeb. And here's an article that proves, again, just as I say, that leftists, sure as shite, they are not hypocrites at all. Because what is it that Bernie Sanders has said? Bernie Sanders has said all along that he's anti-capitalist and he's the least corrupt person that he knows. Oh, wait. Maybe except for his wife. Didn't see that coming, did you? Here's the article from VT Digger. Never been to VT Digger, but here I am. .com. And the headline is, Sanders lawyered up in federal probe of Burlington College. Whoa. Sanders' wife? Well, yes. Why would she lawyer up? I don't know. Let's look. Jane Sanders has hired attorneys to represent her in a Justice Department probe of a land deal she orchestrated while president of the now-defunct Burlington College. Wait, she's a leftist. She's the wife of Bernie Sanders, and she's getting into capitalist, corrupt land deals. What does Bernie think about that? I wonder if she told him. Did she sit him down and say, Bernie, just want to let you know that I'm going to be doing some land deals while I'm president of Burlington College, and they're not around anymore, but I'm doing it so that, sub rosa, we can sort of benefit. The article continues. A former college employee who coordinated the school's response to an FBI subpoena in February 2016 said she was contacted by two attorneys representing Jane Sanders shortly after VT Digger broke the news confirming the federal probe in late April of 2016. They wanted information on what I had been asked by the FBI. They were trying to get clarification on what the accusations are because they had not been contacted by anybody as to an investigation, said Coralie Holm, the former dean of operations and advancement for Burlington College. Does this not look like perhaps a bit of skullduggery? No.
Big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. This new year, get clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list, including Ritual's best-selling Essential Prenatal Multivitamin, designed with 12 traceable key ingredients to support a healthy pregnancy. With big changes coming up, take the small steps now and start today with 30% off a 3-month supply at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
No, that can't be right. Because we're talking about leftists here. There would not be skullduggery on the part of leftists. Perish that thought. I know it went through your head, but just take it, shoot it right out. Don't even think about that. Two former Burlington College trustees said they were also contacted by attorneys representing Sanders, wife of U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Holmes said she got a call from the office of prominent Burlington attorney Rich Cassidy in late April or early May. Jane Sanders did not immediately return a call requesting comment for this report and has refused VT Digger's repeated requests for an interview about Burlington College since late 2015. Oh, wait, so it's bad if conservatives or Republicans won't return a phone call, but it's okay if leftists and the family of leftists do that. Because, the media would not go after the family of Trump, would they, in any fashion? No. Nothing to see. Move on. Very interesting. Holmes said she was contacted in late May by Jennifer Wyndham, a partner in the Washington, D.C., a law firm of Roberts, Russell, Englert, Orszak, Unterreiner, and Sauber. Say that 3 times real fast. Go. Wyndham's questions were similar to those from Cassidy's office, asking Holm to outline her understanding of the allegations against Sanders. Wait, does this mean there's an investigation? No. Stop. You don't investigate leftists. Come on, ask the American media maggots. You don't. Repeat after me. You don't investigate leftists. That's your new mantra. Take it and run. Holmes said that after asking for more information, she declined to answer questions from either attorney. Wyndham could not immediately be reached for comment Thursday. The bio on her firm's website says she's a trial attorney who specializes in complex civil litigation and government investigations and enforcement actions. There's a whole lot more here, but, all I'm saying is that just remember, when leftists do it, it's just fine. When everybody else, specifically conservatives, libertarians, although not so much because the libertarians don't really provide a very good dramatic show for everyone, and the Republicans do it, it's bad. Okay, so that's what you take away from this particular article. Leftist hypocrisy, good. Conservative hypocrisy, bad. Okay, that's enough. Move along. Now let's talk about the state of California. This is interesting. No shock that I told you that my wife works for the state. I won't tell you where she works. You can't drive by and then ask for a cup of water. She wouldn't do that anyway. In any event, Texas, here's from SacB. The SacramentoBee.com is our favorite, it's the only leftist newspaper, it's the only newspaper in Sacramento, Fornicalia. It leans just a bit left, keeping full congruence with the rest of the state. You would expect no less, would you not? Here's the headline out of the Sacramento Bee. Texas, 3 more states on California's banned travel list. Wait, are you saying that state workers, there are states where people from the state of Fornicalia cannot travel and or conduct business? Yes. Isn't that grand? That's California cutting off its nose or other appendages in order to spite its face. This is great. Okay, here we go. Texas, 3 more states on California's banned travel list. California is restricting publicly funded travel to 4 more states because of recent laws that leaders here view as discriminatory against gay and transgender people. All totaled, California now bans most state-funded travel to 8 states. I wonder which ones they are. The new additions to California's restricted travel ban are Texas, of course, because they're pretty independent and give the flying fickle finger of fate to the state of California, having stolen many businesses from the state of California. Hell, that's enough to piss them off in the first place. And move a lot of those businesses to Texas because of the lesser restrictions and the greater tax benefits. Texas, Alabama, Kentucky, and South Dakota. Interesting. They join Kansas, Mississippi, North Carolina, and Tennessee as states already subjected to the ban. That means that all work in those states is incredibly afflicted and people are losing their jobs left and right because of the massive influence that the state of No, that's not what's happening. California Attorney General Xavier Becerra announced the new states at a Thursday press conference. That's today, so this is new. Where he was joined by representatives from ACLU, Northern California, and Equality California. Wait, just for a moment, who is this Xavier Becerra guy? Oh, that's right. He's the new Attorney General who replaced Kamala Harris, who got elected to replace Senator Barbara Boxer. She's the one that's become a wonderful interruptist and obstructionist in D.C. during committee meetings. And Xavier Becerra replaced Kamala Harris. Oh, that's right. Xavier Becerra is also the new Attorney General that the state of Fornicalia didn't trust sufficiently with handling certain things. That is to say, immigration, sanctuary status, etc. They didn't trust Xavier Becerra to the point where they decided, they being the state of California, that they were going to hire the law firm of Eric Holder, pay that firm and Eric, lovely Eric, contempt of Congress Eric, pay his law firm $74,000 a month as consultants, air quotes, consultants, to fight whatever it is, literally, whatever it is that stems from D.C. from Trump. Because they didn't really have much confidence in Xavier Becerra. That's like, Xavier, come in. You're the new attorney general. Okay, go over there and sit in the corner, would you? We're going to get real business done here just for a moment. So, here, read this magazine, and we'll get back to you, Xavier, my good friend. We will not spend taxpayer dollars in states that discriminate, Becerra said. California's legislature last year voted to restrict state-funded travel to states with laws that allow businesses to deny services to gay and transgender people. Kind of like no...
Big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. This new year, get clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list, including Ritual's best-selling Essential Prenatal Multivitamin, designed with 12 traceable key ingredients to support a healthy pregnancy. With big changes coming up, take the small steps now and start today with 30% off a 3-month supply at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Shoes, no shirt, no service, and we bake a cake or we don't bake a cake, depending on how we feel at the time. But it's so cool to sue cake bakers so that they have to bake your cake and then you sue the fuck out of them and then they're out of business. Woohoo! Good times. California's legislature last year voted to restrict state-funded travel to states with laws that allow businesses to deny services. California's law gained attention after North Carolina enacted its so-called bathroom bill, as you recall, which prevented local governments from adopting anti-discrimination ordinances and required that people using bathrooms in public buildings choose the restroom that corresponds to their gender at birth. Stop the presses. That is the most heinous and oppressive thing I have heard in probably 7 decades. I have been on this planet, not Zephron, this planet for 7 decades. And I don't think I've heard anything more outrageous than that. You, in these states, you probably have to go to the bathroom that corresponds to your sex. Oh, my God. When will the heinous shart like that stop? It's a good thing I'm sitting down because literally I'm swooning now. I am literally a swoon. Texas Governor Greg Abbott this month signed a law that allows child welfare providers to deny services because of sincerely held religious beliefs instead of forcing people to do that. I wonder, were they forcing people like that? Were they forcing, or would they force Muslims to do that? Because it's all right if you're a leftist and you're in fornicalia. It's all right to do your level best to make sure that you restrict Christians. Now that's okay. But those Muslims, no, they shoot back. Texas Governor Greg Abbott this month signed a bill that allows child welfare providers to deny services because of sincerely held religious beliefs, a provision that critics interpreted as permitting adoption agencies to deny services to gay families. Alabama and South Dakota were added to California's list of banned states because of similar adoption-related laws. The California Department of Justice, occasionally injustice, said Kentucky's Senate Bill 17 allows student-run organizations in schools to discriminate against classmates. I wonder what that discrimination involves. Oh, that's right. It could be pretty much insisting that people with the appropriate possession of certain junk piles go to one bathroom and certain persons with a collection of other junk piles go to this bathroom over here because that's oppressive. Anyway, that's the state of California for you. That's the state of the art. Woohoo, good for fornicalia. And then there were the Demorats. Now, they seem to be in a bit of a kerfuffle these days, do they not? Because it's so sad. The Demorats are saying, you know what? Just like the Beatles, money can't buy us love. How sad. $33 million gone. Man, that's gotta hurt. Money certainly ain't buying much Demorat love these days in Georgia. So here's what the deal is. The Demorats are now 0 for 4 in special elections and in the Jon Ossoff loss. How could the Demorats not manage to absolutely walk away with the election, considering that the area where it was held in Georgia was not a strong Donald Trump area? Donald Trump did rather poorly, as a matter of fact, in that area. And in terms of pushback on Trump, they should have really kicked the Donald and said they were going to kick the Donald all the way to the curb. Here's the deal. $33 million. Jon Ossoff outspent Karen Handel, the Republican, 7-1. 7-1. Does that sound similar to another situation?
What do you have? What's the latest?
No, and on the conversation that's going to happen again, 4 Republican seats, 4 Republican members of Congress joined the Trump cabinet.
By the way, this is CNN. So with that in mind, consider the slant.
Republicans have held now all 4 of these seats, including Georgia 6, which is viewed as the most competitive. Close doesn't count. Are there things Democrats can find in every one of those races to say, hey, here's some hope for 2018? Hey, here's some lessons we can learn? Sure. But did they get any?
Oh, lessons to be learned. Okay. Are they? Let's find out.
Wins? No. And did they get a win in the place they targeted the most, spent all the money? Absolutely not. This is tough. This is district-wide here, the Atlanta suburbs, 52-48 at the count now. We're getting close to we're counting now. We're up to 160 plus of the precincts in this district. I want to pull it out for you this way and show you what happened here. First, I'm sorry for one second. I want to go back to here and draw you a line just to give you a sense. The congressional district is actually north of this line. The counties report the votes, so you see colored in areas that are not in the congressional district because the counties report these votes. But let's look at what happened here. Number one, here's a painful thing for Democrats.
The painful thing for Democrats. Demorats, that seems to be a little bit of a trend. Not necessarily in politics in D.C., but certainly in terms of elections.
Take back the House next year, Democrats have to win 24 seats.
To take back the House next year, Democrats have to win 24 seats. An important number to remember.
So you have to take away 24 Republican seats, which means
and 24 Republicans have to lose.
You have to go to places where Republican wins and convince Republicans to switch and vote for Democrats.
Republicans to switch and vote for Demorats. Wow, what a concept.
Cobb County is the most conservative, the most Republican part of this district. Jon Ossoff got only 39% of the vote. There's more votes to be counted, Don, but he's at roughly 39%. He needed to be around 43, 44 to have a chance in this part of the district to...
Wait. Weren't, wasn't, didn't everyone literally say that Jon Ossoff was going to walk in, steal the election, kick Karen Handel's arse to the curb, and walk away? Isn't that correct? Well, sure it was. Come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the...
Big shout out to you for making it through the hectic holiday season. This new year, get clean, quality, pregnancy nutrient support off your to-do list, including Ritual's best-selling Essential Prenatal Multivitamin, designed with 12 traceable key ingredients to support a healthy pregnancy. With big changes coming up, take the small steps now and start today with 30% off a 3-month supply at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here's Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Catholic is stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense Show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com and highplainsdailynews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. And despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. It is the Thursday show, the Aftermath, which is all the shite that I couldn't customarily fit into the Tuesday show, or for whatever reason didn't get addressed in the other show on the Sackhead show. There's a particular little thing that we were looking at right now, and we were in the midst of listening to CNN, and they were talking about the Demorats. We were discussing that apparently money can't buy the Demorats much love these days. How sad.
To win the district, Democrats have to ask themselves, how do we get Republicans to vote? Especially in a district where Donald Trump performed so poorly, just barely won it. Why is it that John Ossoff couldn't get Republican crossover votes? They're going to have to ask that. In the most Democratic part of the district, and the reason we know this race is over, even though we haven't counted all the votes, DeKalb County is the most Democratic part. All the votes in DeKalb are counted. John Ossoff did quite well in that county, nearly 60-40, 58-42, but there are no more votes there for him to come back. That's why we know, even as we count the final votes, that Karen Handel will win this race. In Fulton County, again.
Which, of course, she did quite handily. 4 to 5 points.
The northern part of Fulton County, the Atlanta suburbs out to the exurbs, 53-47. Strong performance by the Republican candidate, Karen Handel. Out of 2008, after 2012, a lot of talk that Republicans didn't get the mechanics of the digital age of politics. Donald Trump's campaign proved it late.
Wait. This guy on CNN is trying to convince us that the Demorats don't get social media, that the Demorats don't get digital social media and digital content these days. Apparently, this guy has the memory of a baboon because it was all about social media, and that's how Barack Hussein Obama got elected. Could it be possibly that this guy Ossoff just didn't have anything to offer? Could that possibly be it? You know what? Yes. Does that not sound just a little bit familiar to you? I would expect that yes, it does. It does sound just a bit familiar.
Republicans proved it late in 2016, and Republicans have now proven it again in a competitive area with a lot of money. They can turn out their voters on Election Day and compete in the early voting. That's a painful lesson for Democrats, Don, as we move from these special elections now into the 2018 climate. And I just want to make the button up with what I said before. If you're Republicans, you were afraid if you lost tonight, a lot of incumbents would retire. I'm not saying incumbents won't retire. Incumbents always retire. But the number of Republican incumbents retiring is likely to be impacted by this tonight. That's one of the reasons Republicans are very, very happy with this win.
Didn't pull it off.
Oh, that's right. That means that because they won, Republicans are not going to retire. You know, this is funny, particularly in light of the fact that two of these special elections went down the rabbit hole for the Demorats in one night. So there were two defeats on Thursday, and one was in South Carolina and the other one was in Georgia. And that means they lost, of course. And the Georgia election threw away essentially $33 million, courtesy of the DNC and George Soros, and leftists the absolute world order. And like I said, Ossoff outspent Handel by a margin of 7-1. And still, they could not defeat one measly Republican chick who won, incidentally, by more than 5 points. So this is interesting. Demorats just went 0-4. When will they win? This is by CNN.com. Demorats tried an unoffensive, moderate message in Georgia. They ran a banjo-strumming populist in Montana. They called in the cavalry in South Carolina and tried to catch their foe sleeping through a long shot in Kansas. None of it worked. In the special elections for House seats vacated by Republicans who wound up in President Donald Trump's cabinet, Demorats just went 0-4. Now, party officials, strategists, and candidates are pondering what went wrong and how they can turn it around in time for the 2018 midterm elections. Now, party officials, strategists, and candidates are pondering what went wrong and how they can turn it around. John Ossoff lost Tuesday night in a hyper-competitive Georgia race, the most expensive in history, better be a wake-up call for Demorats. Massachusetts Republican Seth Moulton, an emerging Democratic leader, said, "We need a genuinely new message, a serious job plan that reaches all Americans, and a bigger tent," he wrote. "Not a smaller one. Focus on the future." He can't say that. That's sort of the speaking power, truth to power thingy. And the Demorats don't want to hear that. That's bad. So, you know, it's bad enough. But then, shock of shocks, you know, it's somehow, It somehow goes personal when certain Demorat personnel kindly suggest that it's time for the ancient and doddering Nancy Pelosi to step aside, as she doesn't truly seem to be doing much for her leftist party. When you've got Demorats, fellow Demorats, pointing fingers at Nancy Pelosi, the revered one, and saying that she must leave, you've got a problem.
Time to speak truth to power. Time to say, Nancy Pelosi, I love you, but you are not right for the times. We need new blood. Are you willing to say that?
Yes, and I've been very vocal about this actually as far back as last November, after we did not pick up the seats that we should have picked up. You know, this is not an easy conversation, Chris. I would rather be sitting here talking about how we are in the majority, we're going to protect health care for every American, and we're not. And the reason why we're not talking about that is because we don't have a seat at the table. We need a winning strategy. And I think the first step to getting to a winning strategy is a change in leadership.
Who do you think it should be?
It's not up to me to decide. We have a very robust caucus. What I am trying to do is to move us in a direction where we have the conversation.
Notice the hesitation to even posit who it might be, because who's waiting in the wings? Who would want something like that? Who could follow up on Nancy Pelosi? Because, literally, who would you have? You're not going to throw any young bunny in there. Would you have Bernie Sanders? Who would you have? Who would you have?
That is so necessary now. You know, Chris, if you were talking about a company that was posting losing numbers, if you were talking about any sports team that was losing.
Oh, wait, are you talking about politics actually starting to run it like a business? Like Donald Trump maybe do it?
Time and time again. Changes would be made, right? The CEO would be out, the coach would be out. And there would be a new strategy put in place.
A business strategy, a business analogy, a sports analogy used by a Demorat. That's rich.
We need a vision, right? Where do we want to go as a party? And we need a message. How are we going to get there? And I just don't think that the leadership that we have right now can take us where this party needs to go.
Uh-oh. The rats are starting to bail off the ropes from the ship. And they're starting to go back to the wharf. That's terrible. So Nancy's reply, she did have one, of course. She decides that it's time to double down on incompetency. She's going to cite what she called her masterful legislating in response to her insistence on not stepping inside. This is absolutely glorious. And this is what she said. Well, I'm a master legislator. I'm a strategic, politically astute leader. My leadership is recognized by many around the country, not Zephron. And that is why I'm able to attract the support that I do, which is essential to our elections. Really. Oh, and then she got pissed off at the Demorats.
Yes, ma'am. Leader Pelosi, thank you so much. As you just referenced, some of your...
Okay, a note on this particular point. Up to this point, because they can see that the Demorats have been gutted and there's a little bit of blood in the water, you notice how the mainstream, the American media maggots here are just a little bit more insistent in their questions because they can sense weakness. And Nancy Pelosi is a little weak. The question here and the question they're going to ask a little bit later.
Fellow Democrats have blamed you in part for the loss in Georgia, the other losses in the special elections. They say it's time for a fresh perspective. Is it time for you to step aside and allow for some new leadership?
Oh, my God. No one would have asked that question of Nancy Pelosi last year at this time. No one. None of the American media maggots would have done that.
We always have this discussion. One is one, two is a couple,
has been
three
a
is a few, some. But I feel very confident in the support that I have in my caucus. No, my timing is not about them. My comments is about the issues that we're here to fight, and we're fighting right now.
Identity politics, that's all they have. Race, that's all they have. Gender, that's all they have. That's all they possess.
On the health care bill. The expansion of opportunity in our caucus has been great for people who want to take advantage and help us win. Maybe they don't want to play in that arena But I'm very proud of the members who do. They're going around the country listening, our 30-something.
This is gobbledygook.
Things listening to the voices of young people. And my 30th anniversary is this in June. And at my celebrations, I have always featured the young 30-somethings, 30, and they are so
30. Oh, now she's talking about rifles.
So impressive. So we're paving a way for a new generation of leadership.
You're right, except that she won't step down to make way for a new generation of leadership. Isn't that funny? Hypocritical.
And I respect any opinion that my members have, but
except when it disagrees with hers, then not so much.
My decision about how long I stay is not up to them.
Just to follow up, Democrats.
Yes, my decision to stay is not up to you Demorats who are calling for me to leave. So basically she's saying, yep, I hear you, fuck you.
Have lost 60 seats over the past 6 years. So why should you keep your job?
Well, look at
again? Last year, this time, do you think any reporterette or journalista would have had the temerity to ask Nancy Pelosi, why do you keep your job?
I'll tell you something, when he lost 54 seats, something like that, when President Clinton was president. And so his...
Absolutely astounding, but this proves a point. There's blood in the water. And the American media maggots sense it. They can smell it like a bad shark. Like those little lines that go down the sides of a shark and those little nodules in their nose. The blood, the political blood. They can smell it. Nothing like, however, that lovely phrase of the definition of insanity, a concept that the Demorats have not accepted. And they continue to prove the definition of historical Alzheimer's by failing to recognize that, yep, they well and truly did lose the presidential election on November 8th of 2016. But they can't come to grips with it. Let's see, that's 226 days ago. 7 months and 14 days ago, and they will not still acknowledge reality. But because he's one of my favorite commentators, let's listen to what Tucker Carlson has to say. By the way, in Australia, what's Tucker? Tucker is food, consumables. Just thought I'd tell you. Little tasty tidbit from me to you.
The much-hyped special election in Georgia's 6th congressional district has arrived. With all the overwrought fanfare of a political moon landing, a nationwide superlative contest, and who can resist those, is on full swing on cable news tonight. Just how important is this special election? Well, according to the people you're watching, it's literally everything. It's the definitive referendum on Donald Trump. It's D-Day for Trump. It's Trump's last stand. Okay. Deep breath, please.
Trump's last stand 7 months into his presidency. But that's how the American media maggots were characterizing this, because they just knew that after having pissed away now $33 million, they were finally going to get some damn results for their cash.
Please. It is true that this election is partly about Donald Trump, and you can tell from the fundraising numbers, which are huge. This is the most expensive congressional race in American history. Almost all that money has come from angry liberals who live out of state. Marin County, Beverly Hills, Martha's Vineyard, that's who's paying.
Marin County, Sausalito, Northern California, Northern San Francisco. Yeah, all lovely leftist bedroom communities.
For this contest.
Do you think there's any ghettos in any of those places, by the way? Do you think in any of those places that he just named, there's just one street named Martin Luther King Boulevard?
Democrat John Ossoff has outraised his opponent fully 7-1. Now, he's running in a suburban district that voted only narrowly for Donald Trump back in November. His opponent, the Republican Karen Handel, may be a remarkably impressive person, but she has shown no signs of that so far.
Again, that's why I like Tucker. Thank you.
In other words, this should not be close. Ossoff ought to be running away with it.
Yes, exactly, which is what the American media maggots were bolstering the Demorats with. The Demorats knew this was going to happen, and the American media maggots were carrying their water all the way.
But as of right now, he's not. He may still win, but not by a huge margin. Why is that? Because Democrats still literally have no idea.
Now, as you can tell, this is before the actual physical results. When, again, pollsters are saying They're predicting him to win. Go back to polls. Polls don't mean shite anymore. We found it with regards to Trump. We found it with regards to Brexit. We're finding it in the recent past. We're going to continue to discover that in the future. Polls don't mean crap anymore.
Why they keep losing elections. If they did, they would have run a real candidate with a real job who understands the constituents he is attempting to represent. Instead, Democrats put up a 30-year-old semi-employed documentary filmmaker who can't even vote for himself because he doesn't live in the district.
That's how much he loves. He loves all those people in the district. He embraces them with a warm, warm heart. No,
he's got a ton of trendy rich people positions on just about every topic. The abortion people love him. He's gravely concerned about climate and childhood obesity and the availability of organic kale.
Right.
He thinks illegal aliens are noble. He went to the London School of Economics. He's super fit and way smarter than you are.
Well, that goes without saying, right? Just ask any leftist.
We could go on and on. You've seen it all before. That's the point. Voters have seen it before, too. And outside of Brooklyn and the west side of L.A., they're not that into it. That's why Democrats keep losing.
Exactly right. But wait. Here's the good part. If you happen to be a leftist, does that mean that sometimes losing is actually winning? Well, it can be if you happen to be a mothership. A mothership. BZ, are you talking about the planet Zephron? No, I'm not. From the WashingtonFreeBeacon.com, which is an underread news site out of D.C., the headline, former DCCC insiders firm banked millions from Ossoff's failed campaign. Ossoff paid Dem firm more than Republican Karen Handel's campaign spent the entire election. So Ossoff is paying a Demorat firm to make sure that he wins, but listen, what don't you ask what happens to all that money? I know I would, and I did, which is why it's in here. A firm started by former insiders for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee hauled in millions of dollars from the failed campaign of Demorat candidate John Ossoff, Federal Election Committee records show. Ossoff's campaign pulled in more than $23 million in contributions during the record-breaking special election in Georgia's 6th congressional district. The campaign disbursed $22.5 million and had $1 million left on hand at the time of its latest filings to the FEC. So, see, isn't that cool? Even though you're a loser, you're a winner. The astronomical expenditures from the Ossoff campaign turned into a bonanza for a firm that was launched by veterans of all the Demorats. So good to find out if you're a Demorat. You can leave D.C., and even if you happen to the Demorats get kicked to the curb, you can still walk away with a good $1 million in your pocket. See, it's like I said, losing can be winning. Isn't that glorious? That's what you want in the United Snakes of America here. The Demorats themselves, they don't have a thing. They have nothing. They are, as we all know, the party of no. N-O. All they possess is obstruction, obfuscation, undermining. They don't have any cogent thoughts whatsoever. They don't have any ideas. All they have is chaos and no. Oh, I'm sorry. They do have Russia. That's good to know. They've got Russia. They can't even admit, this is wonderful, and I think I discussed this last night in Sackheads. They can't even admit that Ossoff lost fair and square. They chalked his loss up to weather. I'm not kidding. They chalked his loss up to weather. Can you believe that? So I wasn't kidding. Now with a mindset like this, how do you come through? How do you begin to unify? Because we always...
Steve, let me ask you one last question on this. If there was a turnout effect from the bad weather today in the district, does that have any partisan implications that you could foresee in terms of what...
This is Rachel Maddow saying that... Rachel Madcow saying that, if they lose, it's not because of the candidate, it's the weather.
Was expected for same-day, election day voting in here rather than the early vote?
Well, and potentially. It all depends where it is. This is anecdotal, and we'll see when the results come in. There have been anecdotal reports, and I've even heard some Republicans saying this, that the turnout in DeKalb, this is the Democratic card of it. This is where, if you're Ossoff, you want to be getting 60, 61, 62% of the vote. You're expecting that. He got 60% in DeKalb. In the early vote, there have been some anecdotal reports, the turnout here in DeKalb, less than expected. That could be a same day. You could attribute that to anything. We'll see if that turns out, but that's something.
Well, no. You can't attribute it to anything. Rachel Madcow just said that it's because of the weather. It's because only the weather only interrupts the Demorats. How does God manage to do that? Clearly, he smiles upon Demorats.
Something else. Now, obviously, if you get into an election like this where it's going to be decided probably by a point or two, you could also blame anything, whichever side you end up on.
Oh, you can blame anything. That's not what Rachel Madcow wanted to hear. Interesting. Now, we have 3 minutes before the top of the hour. We're going to have Tami Jackson calling in at the top of the hour after the break. There was a particular, and I may play this for Tami Jackson during the show, but there was a particular interview that I saw today. It was through Twitter, if I'm not mistaken, where Piers Morgan was talking to Tommy Robinson, and I'll have to frame it in this fashion. Dave Milner already knows where I'm going to go, and that's why I was calling into the EDL today to discuss this little tete-a-tete between Tommy Robinson and Piers Morgan. Now, if you recall, Piers Morgan, if you don't know, Piers Morgan is British, and he's on a show called Good Morning Britain. And so he's got Tommy Robinson on. If you're not familiar with Tommy Robinson, he was one of the first leaders of the EDL, which is the English Defense League. And no, it's not in defense of the language. It's in defense of, yes, the language, but all of England as well. Defense League in terms of making sure that England remains in the hands of the English and not, for example, say, Islam. He had this discussion, and it's I go to this and I pull up these cuts because I want to continue to illustrate to you and all who listen that it's the people who suppress speech, not just in the United States of America, all across the continents, the planet, are those on the left. And what they do is what Piers Morgan, who was here for a while on various networks, CNN, MSNBC, I also think. He's way left, of course. And what they do is if they're losing an argument and they don't have the statistics, and rarely do they ever, to support and bolster their argument, they'll either cut you off entirely, especially in an interview, or they just shout all over you, shout on top of you, and not let you speak. And when you become even more pointed in your illustrations, that is to say, you're having names, you're having facts, you're having statistics about what's going on, you can expect that in the face of logic, that they're going to go even worse on you. So when Tami calls in a little bit later after the break here, perhaps I'll be able to play that interview because it's an excellent and perfect illustration of just how it is that leftists tend to work. Folks, you're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, live and direct on SHR Media, the SHR Media Network. It's Thursday, therefore it's the aftermath. In the Saloon, it's June 22nd, the year of our Lord 2017. And of course, thanks for being in chat. Thanks for listening live. And we'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying coffee was stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. It's Thursday, therefore it's the aftermath. Tami Jackson is scheduled to call in. In the meantime, until she does, I told you that I was considering the particular little tete-a-tete, the kerfuffle, the flare-up that occurred recently within the past couple of days on Good Morning Britain with Piers Morgan and another female whose name completely escapes me, and Tommy Robinson. And so remember that you called this people. Your public relations folks had to call Tommy Robinson and specifically ask him to come on. So that's what we call a guest. Now, is this in fact a way that you wish to treat a guest? Just curious. Or do you? By the way, he's got a book out. I can't think of the title. Gosh.
Very much indeed. The former leader of the English Defence League, Tommy Robinson,
There
has
we
caused
go.
fury after accusing the Finsbury Park Mosque of creating terrorists.
Well, after the terror attack last night, he tweeted, "The mosque where the attack happened tonight has a long history of creating terrorists."
All right, stop. Now, remember the mosque that was involved with the guy that the white guy, the Caucasoid, that took his van and attempted to run some people down, and there was one person that was hurt, and some other people that were seriously injured. And Tommy Robinson wrote in a tweet, "The mosque where the attack happened tonight has a long history of creating terrorists and radical jihadists and promoting hate and segregation." I wonder. We'll tell you what. We're going to have to put this away just for a second because we have Tami Jackson who just called in. And Tami Jackson is on Skype. Number one, most important thing to make sure is, Tami Jackson, can you actually hear me? There's a reason for me asking you this.
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Now, you don't listen to the show regularly, but I have a history with technology, okay? And you may already know that. And that is... And that is to say, technology is not necessarily my great friend. We don't wake up in the middle of the night and I go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, and then I shake hands with technology. That's not what happens. Wait a minute. Did I go someplace that you didn't want to go? In any event, I'm sort of what you would call a techno-Luddite. And so because on Tuesday's show, I had, let's just say, an air quotes, issue with somebody that called in. And, of course, I didn't hear the end of it. It never stopped. And so last night when I was on another radio show in this very same studio, I told my tale of grief and woe to the particular person who's the head of the media network here. And I said, look, this is what happened. This person called in. I couldn't hear really well. And I can't figure out. And then he went over and he took his button, a little mouse thing, and went click. And the speaker for the laptop, the brand new SHR laptop, the speaker was off, and that's all it took is one click. So I went 90 minutes, Tami J, 90 minutes with someone, poor person, not having as much volume as you did now. And so I did my experimentation, and thank God, Tami Jackson, it works. So let's all... Thank God, I'm telling you, if I weren't wearing a hat right now, you'd see the rivulets of sweat flowing down my puffy, floated, fettled cheeks at this point. I get to say, let's welcome Tami Jackson to the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. And as this is her first appearance here on tonight's show, The Aftermath, which, of course, is all the shite that I couldn't customarily fit into the Tuesday show, and I failed to mention on the Sackheads radio show from last night. But first, okay, a bit about Tami Jackson, about you, and how our paths managed to cross. Because don't think that you're going to get away unscathed tonight, Tami Jackson. Boy, do I have some questions to you. But for the folks that are listening, they're not really as familiar with you as I am, and I'm going to recommend I'm going to give you all the time you could possibly need to hype your show, because I want people to also listen to you as well. Just to give a little bit of a background, what happened is, until radio host Hugh Hewitt migrated over to his DC early morning show, Hugh Hewitt used to be on a relatively decent time for the left coast. And Tami Jackson also happens to be on the left coast. Now it's 3 p.m. Pacific. And those people that were in Hewitt's chat room were called Tribbles. And so I became a member of the Tribbles in chat, and that's where I came across Tami Jackson. And so I discovered that she had her own internet radio show, and I listened when time availed. And so I actually got to meet Tami Jackson in July of 2015 during what turned out to be the last official Tribble Fest held at Disneyland, where Hugh Hewitt would customarily broadcast yearly from the happiest place on earth. And so I met Tami J there, as I call her, as well as the rest of the very good Tribbles, and good times were had by all. Then Hugh moved from Southern California over to his D.C. studio last year. His show is live at 3 a.m. Pacific, and of course, there's no fucking way that I'm going to be getting up at 3 a.m. in Pacific to listen to Hugh Hewitt. So because old BZ is nappy by at that time, okay? So Hewitt and the Tribbles fell off the map. Well, I continued to listen to Tami Jackson Show. And so then came the Saloon, and I figured, okay, this is pretty much as good a time as anybody to introduce the audience here to Tami J. And I would like to read from her CV at the 405 Media, which is where her show exists, because I find this, it's like, Tami Jackson, where the hell do you ever find time to do anything? This is a CV. Listen up, folks. Tami Jackson is a lifelong conservative embedded in her once red native state of Oregon. That's a story in and of itself. And is the granddaughter of legal Norwegian immigrants. Thank you for making that very point. She's an evangelical Christian, the mom of one Persian cat named Omar. She's a Second Amendment aficionado, the chief organizer and instigator of trouble amongst the Hugh Hewitt Tribbles, whom I just mentioned, and prone to laugh often and without warning. And as she writes, and a lot of people have said she has spunk, she's the editor-in-chief of barbwire.com, although I don't think that's occurring anymore, if I'm not mistaken.
No, Barbed Wire is still occurring, but Saving Our Future is not.
Oh, I mixed them up. I got the two wrong.
Yeah, that's okay.
social media content marketing for Robar Guns, and trust me, that's going to be a question when we get to it. Tami Jackson is the editor-in-chief of RightVoiceMedia.com and the social media marketing director for Ride the Thunder Movie, which we'll discuss in just a bit, too. So the Tami Jackson Show is her radio show, and it encompasses a broad range of topics important to conservatives today, including politics, current affairs, guns, and the Second Amendment, faith, religious liberties, and the First Amendment, sanctity of life, the military, and even books, music, and film. We're going to get into that, too. One of my favorite parts, I like this. NRA certified in basic pistol, a CHL holder trained in concealed carry tactics by her Tier 1 shooting instructor, former Navy SEAL Jeff Gonzalez. Tami covers the growing popularity for shooting sports and gun ownership, especially among women nationwide. Now, stop just for a minute. If you go to bloviatingzeppelin.com and you go to my prior post on Tuesday, which was actually posted on Wednesday, if you go there, I announced Tami Jackson being in the show tonight, and you'll see a photograph of Tami Jackson in Oregon holding a .45 in Condition 1. I love that photograph. I very much do. And don't think I didn't put it up on the blog because, like I say, I really, really did. As a native Oregonian who has seen her beautiful state overrun by progressives, Tami talks common sense, first principles and the Constitution, and never apologizes for one word. Never apologizes for this exceptional country. So that's your CV. That's as much of a benighted introduction as I can possibly conjure for you, madam. So welcome, Tami J, to the Saloon. Was that sufficiently lengthy or not?
That was sufficiently lengthy, and thanks for having me. It's wonderful to be here. I love talking to you. And by the way, although that was seemingly the last Tribble Fest because everything changed, I still had a number of people talking to me, and there is a possibility that probably not this summer, but next summer, I will organize another Tribble Fest. And it may not be in Southern California. We're talking about different venues, perhaps Colorado, Texas, Arizona, Minnesota. There's a number of venues that people are throwing out there. So we'll see what would be an easy hub for people to get to. But there are requests nationwide and even worldwide for friends, from friends asking that that I organize another Tribble Fest because they are just fun.
They're a ton of fun. So you've organized, if I'm not mistaken, you've organized a bunch of these things. At least, 4 or 5?
It might even be 6 of them. And by the way, one thing that I don't have in my CV is that I did do broadcast radio for almost a year. And for a while, I had a 3-hour-a-day show broadcast out of Salem. So I did that for a while, too.
How cool. Now, that's really nice. That was my start back in terrestrial radio. So anyway, welcome to the Saloon. So folks don't know that much about you. So if you don't mind, I'd like to go into your past just a bit. Can you tell us where you grew up, where you went to school, just a little bit of your background?
Well, the fun thing is I grew up in Central Oregon, and for anybody that's not all that familiar with Oregon, Central Oregon is high desert country. So think of cowboys and ranches. Think of bonanza and ponderosas and wide open spaces with the Cascade Mountain ranges. Every morning I woke up in my bedroom, I could see to the south Lava Butte, and that was the south tail end of the Cascade Mountains in Oregon. And out of the main window, heading due west, was Mount Bachelor and the rest of the Cascades, because I was a skier. So my dad told me when I was young, BC, that if I got 1, good grades, and 2, was in church once a week with the family, then 3, I could ski whenever I wanted.
Ooh.
So, yes.
Nice.
Which is not a bad deal. I mean, that's like the real world, right? If you do this, and this, you actually can do C. And so that's what I did. So I grew up skiing. I grew up in Central Oregon. I love country music and swing dancing and horses and cowboys and all that good stuff. And of course, I was raised by a guy that was a Midwest man who also spent a number of years in the Army Reserves and was an expert marksman with a rifle. So lots of guns in the home. I shot .22s occasionally as a kid, but never handguns till I was older. So I was always big, and my dad was a great conservative. He was the dad that a lot of people hear about and they don't think exists, that I'd come home from school and he'd say, Tammy, what classes did you have today? Okay, do you need help with algebra? He was a research scientist. He could do any of that stuff. But he also knew a lot about worldviews, about conservatism, and he'd say, well, what do you think the worldview of that teacher is that's trying to teach you X, Y, and Z? And we'd discuss this stuff. So
wow.
From a young age, I had a dad like that. I played piano in competition. Not everybody knows that about me, and I did a lot of playing all over the place, including shows when I was in college, and I sang and played. Don't do that much anymore. But, just had a lot of interesting upbringing, and it is pretty interesting to have grandparents that were from Norway, so they brought over that work ethic that is tremendous. That was a gift to me that I will prize forever. And everyone in the family, even the ones, BZ, that once upon a time were Democrats, they're all Republicans now, but they were very conservative, even if they had that label. So I was just raised in this family that had, they knew the Constitution, they had faith, they were all Second Amendment, they were hunters, fishermen, etc. I had a pretty idyllic childhood. I really did.
What a wonderful thing that was, that your father decided to take you under his wing at an early age and craft and mold you in a fashion so that your eyes were open to the nature of all sorts of persons from a young age. I think I would submit that he did you an incredible favor by doing that as well, because you were provided by him a certain insight that kids that didn't have that, they never possessed. They never were given and handed the ability to examine people and look at their background in their history and try to figure out who they are, because that's part and parcel of what a particular individual is. I was equally happy. My dad used to sit me down when I was a kid, and we'd go over the stocks, and I'd buy stocks through my dad for pennies on the dollar.
You told me about that.
So that we'd sit down and he taught me, that's how I ended up saving and all that kind of stuff. And it's when those were the formative years, when you sit down with your parents, your father, etc., and that's how you're formed at an early age. So I was going to ask you where it was that you got your strong conservative background, and I think you've pretty much indicated that. And then I was going to ask you, okay, now where did you get your religious background? And I think you've pretty much indicated that as well. So,
and I've got something, BZ, that I could tell on your show that nobody's ever heard before, except for a couple of people that know me in person.
Sure.
So this is, and since we just passed Father's Day, I think this is something I've never really talked about on radio, but it's a little bit of an interesting story. And I know that my mom, were she alive, she died very young of a real rare cancer. She would give me the nod to go ahead and tell this story. My mom found herself in a position where she was pregnant at a real young age with me. And the fellow they fell in love, but, kids, even back then, things happened. So what they did was they got married quickly, and things seemed to be okay until he started hitting the bottle. My biological dad was a race car driver. He was a hard-drinking race car driver, although he'd been kind of abstaining a little bit while dating Mom. And once they got married, he started hitting the bottle big time. He finally, at one point, and nobody's ever heard this before, but he did physically beat her up, and then he left. And my mom told me that the only thing that made it easy for her to let him go was that she was afraid he would hurt me. So, thus kind of the beginnings of my pro-life worldview. So he left, and it was just Mom and I, and she went back and lived with Grandma and Grandpa, and she had great aunts and uncles and everybody come around her and say, what can we do to help you? And
yeah, there you go. Family support.
Yeah, and a plan was devised. She didn't want money from him, but she did need help. And so she finished up a college degree in broadcasting, which is interesting considering what I've been doing
No
the last
kidding.
5 years.
Yes.
Yeah, and my mom was a gorgeous woman. Some of you people have seen pictures of her and I. She was beautiful, and she got more so as she got older. But the plan
As have you.
Oh, thanks.
Come on.
You're very kind. You're kind. But the plan was that when I was born, I'd be with Mom for a little bit, and then she'd take off to a job that was offered in the southern part of the state. And since my grandmother owned a business and she and Grandpa were so busy all the time, one of my great aunts and my great uncle, they were my godparents, and she had given up her business to raise her kids to the point when they were young teenagers and was just thinking of going back to work. And she said, let us take Tam. You go get your, on your feet, get some money saved up, and then you can have her come live with you at that point whenever you want. And so my great aunt took me under her wing into her household, my great aunt and uncle. I was with them for over a year. From 6 months to a year and a half, 2 years old, they kept me. It was just amazing while Mom worked and worked and worked and strived to save enough money to have me and be able to work at the same time. It's an incredible story. So I went back to live with Mom. Mom was working all the time and had just enough money to take care of the two of us and care for me while she was at the radio or the TV station during the day. And her boss was bugging her about getting married or dating or anything. And she said, who wants a woman with a child? And I'm too busy, and I just don't have the money. He finally wore her down enough that she said, okay. And little did she know that her boss, who was the manager of this TV station, who a lot of people in the state later knew as a big TV personality in Oregon, he was best friends with this guy's major professor at Oregon State University. Well, the major professor was bugging Pat Cochran, who's now my dad, bugging him. Dad was working on his master's and then doctorate, and he didn't have the money to do anything but work hard and keep perfect grades. And he said, Cochran, you're a good-looking kid. You're a nice kid. You ought to be having a date now and then. He bugged him until Dad finally gave in. So Dad called Mom, and they had a blind date. And I didn't find out until Mom's memorial service that the minute she opened the door, he was just doing it to get the major professor off his back. The minute Mom opened the door at his memorial service, he told two different pastors, she had my heart immediately, but I wasn't stupid. I didn't tell her that for 6 months. And then he proposed at 1 year. So at that point in time, I was 3.5 years old. And when he proposed, and Mom knew it was coming, she suspected it was coming, he said, Joan, I love you. I want to marry you if you'll have me. But before you answer, I also want to adopt Tami so she'll always know she was wanted. And if I can't do that, the offer's off the table. And Mom said yes, and the rest is history. So on Father's Day this year, like every year, I sent him a card, and I said, I'm so glad that you wanted to be my dad. I love you so much. So a lot of people, they have dads, and they're blessed with wonderful dads, but mine actually chose me, and I just think it's a pretty special story.
That is the story of a father. There are in a number of relationships with kids. There are sperm donors, and then there are the actual parents who do the true, well and true parenting. And you were lucky enough to find someone, clearly, who wanted you, and you're lucky enough to have him alive with you. My dad passed in 2009. I miss him terribly to this day.
Yes.
My mom passed in 2002, so I don't have my parents around. But, folks, if you still have your parents, every day with them is, in fact, a blessing. And I bet that's exactly how you view it, Tami J., especially with regard to your father and Father's Day.
Yep, I certainly do. And I lost my mom in 1990 of a very rare cancer. My dad remarried a wonderful woman who's been a big blessing to our family, and her husband died of the same very rare cancer. It's another amazing story.
Holy moly!
So we say it was a happy ending for two sad stories in two different families. But as I think of Mom and what a blessing she was, I had her for 32 years, and a lot of people don't have a wonderful mom like that or don't have one for very long. So I try to count my blessings more than feel sorry for myself, as much as I do miss her, and I do.
That's an absolutely wonderful situation. We've got about 3 minutes or so to the bottom of the hour break. Before we transition to another topic, what I'd like to do is I'd like you right now, so people can remember, and I'm going to give you another opportunity. By the way, folks, we're listening and speaking with Tami Jackson, who is the owner of Right Voice Media, and you can hear her on the 405 Media on the Tami Jackson Show. So please, Tami, take these minutes. Tell people where you can be read, tell people where you can be found, and tell people where they can hear you. Please.
You bet. You can follow me on Twitter at Tami J, Tamij. Also, I am the editor-in-chief of barbedwire.com, all one word, barbedwire.com. So I write there and I also edit there. It's a great site. And my show is every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the405media.com. And I'd love to have people listen. I've been just really honored to have some fantastic guests over the years, and I go back every once in a while and look at the spreadsheets of all the guests, and I'm amazed because most of the time, people know my guests and they don't know who I am, so that's just fine by me because it's been an honor to do that.
We're going to get into the number of guests, and don't think that I'm not jealous, very much, emphasis, bold, italics, exclamation points. But tell me, did you obviously completed high school, and I'm guessing you went to college?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. When you were in college, questions for you, though, before we come to the bottom of the hour break. Did you find that college, kind of like me, was a bit of a melting pot, and did college tend to try to drag you down, or did it tend to affirm your core beliefs?
It tried to drag me down, but thank God I had that dad that really firmed up my worldview. I knew what I believed when I went there. And my dad at one point had been a college prof. I have one brother that is a college prof now, another brother that was a college prof for 17 years who just recently was courted by Intel. He is now the head of the sports division of Intel Virtual Reality and actually gets to oversee all of that for the sports division, and they just signed a contract for the Winter Olympics. So I'm kind of the black sheep of the family, BZ. But I was in college for years and years. I was an English major first. I was a Spanish major, French major, and then finally accounting, which just craziness. So I spoke all these languages. My dad thought maybe I just wanted to shop around the world. He didn't know what in the world, and I still am. I'm rusty in those languages, but I understand really well, and I guess I can speak well. But I knew what I believed when I went there. Dad always said, "It's not where you go; it's who you associate with."
Bingo.
And I would say that's great advice. So you could be at the most liberal, you could be at Berserk, but you can find rock solid people to hang with. It doesn't mean you don't have friends of all worldviews, but I really think it's terrific to have best friends that affirm one's own worldview that's kind of rock solid, and that's good because you can bolster each other up. And I had good friends like that, so that was terrific.
Folks, we're at the bottom of the hour. We're going to take about a 2 or 3 minute break. We've been talking to Tami Jackson of the Tami Jackson Show. She's the editor-in-chief of Saving Our Future. She can be heard on the 405media.com. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and we will be right back after this in the Saloon.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHR Media.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon live and direct from the funny little ensconced studio that we have that is, thank God it's cool. Thank God it's cool in here, because it was 109 degrees today in Sacramento, certainly reflective of global warming. Oh, wait, that's what leftists call summer, because in Fornicalia it gets hot as hell in the summertime. That's right. Anyway, welcome back. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And we are speaking to Tami Jackson of the 405 Media. She is on the Tami Jackson Show, and she's the editor-in-chief and bottle washer et al. Of Saving Our Future. And she is a dyed-in-the-wool evangelistic Christian. She is conservative as all get-go, and she's got a radio show. She had a terrestrial radio show, and she has her current internet radio show. So Tami J., welcome back. And this is the time and the point where I get to ask you these questions, because I pose these to anyone that I interview at length on the show, and that's this. And I had them. Everyone has them. I always ask new guests about what they consider to be the pivotal moments in their lives. And I'm going to give you some time to think about it, of course. And I had 3 of them. One of them was involving the use of deadly force as law enforcement officer. One was how I got into my job in the first place, and sort of the gauntlet that was hurled by my mother at the time. And the other one was how I actually came to be a conservative in the first place, when I came from an environment that did not have any kind of a Christian background, that really mom and dad were busy as hell leading their lives and trying to provide for 3 kids in the family. So Those were my pivotal points in my life. I went through them, and everybody that's listening here that's been listening for a while knows what they were. The entire first show was nothing but me chatting about what the hell happened in my background. So I would ask you, Tami J., these things too. There are always pivotal points in one's life where you think you're going in this direction, something unforeseen happens, and boom, you end up going off in this direction. What do you think you might consider some of those pivotal points in your life?
Goodness, I had a lot of interesting and pivotal points, as you would put it. A lot of more smaller points when I'd be talking to Dad. My dad was very interesting as a scientist, as a mathematician, teaching me things little by little, day by day. But there were times when things really resonated with me. I had a time, and this is something else that a lot of people have never heard of. We went back east for 2 years because Dad, out of grad school, was made a professor at Syracuse University.
Ooh, nice.
So there I was in Syracuse for 2 years, and it was very interesting. We had some interesting times there. The first neighborhood we moved into, we didn't understand, but it was a very wealthy Jewish neighborhood. So we realized at Christmas time, for some reason, we had a Christmas tree up and nobody else did. That was odd. And I went to a school that was a very wealthy school with all these darling Jewish kids, and I still have the picture of me from that second grade picture, and it's all these well-dressed, all the boys had on little jackets and ties, and they're in the second grade, and it's a public school, for heaven's sake. And then there's me. I'm in a dress, but imagine, if you will, a picture of all these dark-haired, brown-eyed, brown-haired kids, and they all look lovely, and in the middle...
And then there's the Norwegian...
Yes, it's the Sesame Street thing. Which one of these things is not like the others?
Yeah, exactly.
Blonde. There's this blonde, blue-eyed, blonde-haired, and a tooth missing. And there I am in the middle of all these spiffed up, brown-eyed, brown-haired. That was us. So I spent a couple years back there. I learned a few things at that school, and quite frankly, my teacher that year was the worst teacher I ever had in my life, and then followed by one of the best teachers I'd ever had in my life, because I had a woman, and I still remember her name. It was Mrs. Zellermeyer. She was Jewish and unfortunately had lost a lot of her family in the Holocaust.
Oh my!
And to people that looked Aryan, and here I was, and she did not like that. So that was pretty amazing. And then so because of that situation, we moved closer to the university, and I went to a school, and this was it was kind of a pivotal point because the school itself was built for the blind and the handicapped to begin with, and then became just a normal public school. So in the middle of it was a swimming pool and therapy areas and everything, and everything had Braille on it so that the blind kids could get around. So it was about a third handicapped and blind kids, and 2/3 just other kids. But a lot of those other kids included black kids from very poor neighborhoods near the university. So just a quick funny story. I said, we've moved again. I've got to make all new friends.
Yep.
As if it was going to be a worry.
Yep.
And Mom said, no problem, honey. I'll make chocolate chip cookies. You bring some kids home for cookies. I said, okay, Mom, I'll do it. So the first day of school in this new house, which was a cute little Cape Cod house about 2 blocks from the school, I come home, and it's a warm fall day, and Mom looks out her kitchen window, and there's Tammy with about 7 darling little black kids. And they were the kids from my class that I knew, and Mom just laughed, and I guess she told Dad that night, well, I guess we taught her the right stuff because they were uber conservative, but they always taught me, in this family, we will judge people by their characters, honey. If they're obedient to their parents, if they obey the rules, if they're kind, and so forth. So they drilled this stuff into me, and they never talked about anything else. We didn't talk about the way people looked. I knew I looked different than most everyone at both schools I've been to, so what did I care? But it was an interesting situation back there, and then we moved back to Oregon, so that was pretty interesting. One thing that did happen that I'll talk about, because a lot of my learning was a gradual progression of learning from my dad. My mom was also very conservative. I really got my strong pro-life stance from her, and Dad's extremely pro-life too. But Dad really taught me to be a critical thinker, and whether it was in a math class, a geology class, whatever it was, or something involving philosophy. He taught me to be that critical thinker. And, there's just so many things I liked, and things would gradually get solidified as I got older. So a couple things happened. I ended up getting divorced, and I was one of the first divorced people in my family, and that really shook me up a little bit. I was on my own, and I had a job that was a great job until Obamonomics hit the nation, and at which point the corporation had to start laying people off. They laid off long-timers, and I was the last long-timer, and it was a tough thing to go through. So suddenly, I was living on my own with my cat in an apartment in a safe area in the Portland metro area, but still on my own, ground floor apartment, supposed to be a luxury apartment. They told me how many square feet it was, and after living here, I thought they were mistaken. It was probably cubic feet. It's a nice apartment and so forth. But I had something happen on one summer day or summer night. There was one gal that had moved in with the express permission of her parents, and apparently she had some teens visiting her that over the course of 3 days were having a wilder and wilder party every night, and which is unusual. This is a luxury area and a lot of older people and quiet. But this one apartment was going crazy. Well, on this particular night, they'd been drinking and doing who knows what substances, and most of them were boys and her. And at 2 a.m, I woke up. I had the window open and just a screen, and I'm street level, mind you.
Right.
And about 20 feet from my window are the guys and this gal, and they decided that it was too confining to be up in the apartment. And the guy was, the main guy that I found out later was her boyfriend, who later was arrested. He was so inebriated and high and what have you. She said something wrong, and he started hitting her. So I'm in my apartment. It's 2 a.m. My Persian cat's near me, and I hear him hit her, and she cries out. And I grab my cell phone with one hand, and I yell, "Cut it out!" Now think about this, everybody listening. So, BZ, you've seen me. I'm not the smallest thing on the planet, but I'm not very huge. So I'm about 5'3" and about $125, and I don't even have a Louisville Slugger in my place. And I've just yelled out at a half dozen guys that are all stoned, high, and in a bad mood, and one of them's beating up a gal. And I yell out to cut it out. And I've got my cell phone, and they get quiet out there, and I'm trying not to breathe. And the guy hitting the girl yells back, "Shut the F up, bitch." And at which time I thought, maybe it wasn't wise for me to yell. So I'm dialing 911. I'm trying to back out of that room, thinking, I've only got my front door to get out of. What do I have in the house for protection if they come in this window?
Mm-hmm.
And the police got there, scared them away. Later, the boyfriend was arrested. And the next day, I called up friends of mine, one of whom's in California, and you know him. We call him Fast Bucks. He's down in kind of up near the Reagan Library there. And he's a big-time shooter and on the range all the time. And
right, Jack.
Called him up. Yes. I called him up, told him what happened, and I said, that does it. I need to start learning how to shoot myself, and not just a .22 for fun like kids do, but I need a pistol, I need to get trained, I need to have something in this apartment for self-defense. So that was a pivotal point where my whole journey to becoming adept with a handgun and to, concealed carry, et cetera, started.
That's a perfect example. Now, if I could go back just for a moment, your life is a perfect illustration of what I've said for years. You know it's right, and everybody that's listening knows that it's right. Everybody in chat listening in the podcast. You need parents. You need a mom. You need a dad. You need parents that will take care of the children. A two-person family is best, but people that are out for your goodness, good parents that don't just throw you out to the wolves and there's no monitoring whatsoever. You were the beneficiary, and I was the beneficiary of great parents. I suspect it's because of the times, but we absolutely, that's why, in my opinion, and I don't proselytize much, and I don't really talk about religion very much on the show, but I'm a great believer in God. I'm a great believer in parents. I'm a great believer in the nuclear family, and I think yours is a perfect illustration of how when you raise a child, even in challenging circumstances, and when you don't have a hot and cold running cash flow, you can yield children that turn out to be adults like you, that are well-grounded, centered contributors to society, and are not parasites on the host of America, so to speak. You are an excellent example as the result of parents who actually give a shit about what happens to their kids. So God bless you for that. That is a wonderful, wonderful thing. They guided you on the proper track early.
Yes. It's so funny. I several times a day, I'll say something and realize I'm quoting my dad or my mom. And as well, I had grandparents, great aunts and uncles. I had this extended family that was fantastic. I think about, I laugh all the time about my grandma and the things, you learn something new every day. And she was a business owner, and she was a fantastic businesswoman. And she said, Tami, no employer will ever begrudge you for leaving for a better job. They
That's
just won't.
Bingo.
She said,
ding,
you,
ding, ding.
You take what you can get and look for something better. So I learned all this stuff from them at an early age. And let me tell you, BZ, my grandparents came from poor immigrant parents. They came over here from Norway. They were poor. My grandpa, Ole, and his name really was Ole, although in Norway it's Ola. He came over here as a 15-year-old boy with less than $20 to his name. He had one aunt in the United States of America that said, you can stay with me if you chop the wood, et cetera, and help, because everybody pulled their weight. And he wanted to do that for a while. He went to a little one-room schoolhouse, even though in Norway he was done with school. He wanted to learn English, history, everything possible to become a U.S. citizen. And then, once he had done that, he heard that a town in Oregon looked like Norway. There was a canyon that looked like the fjords. There were Norwegian people there. Went out there, met Grandma. They married. Between the two of them, they had about $20 when they married. And she said she knew she would never starve because he was a good man and the hardest working man she'd ever met. So they started out with nothing. By the time they died, they weren't the Rockefellers or anything like that, but they probably had over $1 million in assets. And that was all, BZ, that was all from doing the right thing, from hard work their whole entire life. And when you have a background like that, they had the faith, they had perseverance, they had hard work, they had all that stuff that really is the glue. And I learned it from them as well as my parents.
You are living proof that family And a cohesive family unit is everything. And you don't need to go on the dole for everything. It's all about the familial mindset. People ask, why do certain segments of society, certain strata of society, when they may all be immigrants, what's the difference between success and failure? And I happen to say it's family, and it's mindset, and it's hard work. And that's what it takes, and that's what you and your family have. Folks, we're talking to Tami Jackson of the Tami Jackson Show, the editor-in-chief of Saving Our Future. We got about 10 minutes left, Tami, before the segment ends, and we all have to go away to our various things that we do late at night. I would love to have you tell the folks here, and I know it's been a wide and vast array. You have interviewed some wonderful, great people across a huge spectrum of topics. So can you tell some of the folks, who have you spoken to? I know a lot of them. I don't know all of them, but your gets on interviews are absolutely, in my opinion, spectacular.
Well, it's been just a wild ride. One of the people that I ended up becoming friends with, who actually went to U of O and played football there, but I was introduced to him via other friends, and he's a former Navy SEAL that most people now know him as the Secretary of the Department of the Interior, Ryan Zinke. And I had him on the show a couple times, and it was just amazing because we started talking online and became good friends, and he's a fabulous guy. And by the way, the mainstream media is not reporting everything he's doing, which is really fabulous stuff because he loves our natural resources, but he's also got some common sense going on. I've had him on the show. I've interviewed David Limbaugh, and in the process, I got to know David. I didn't get to know his brother Rush, although I guess David's talked to Rush about me, so maybe that's why Rush has avoided me. Who knows? But I did get to know their cousin Andy. He's become a good friend. I actually was asked by Dinesh D'Souza to be on, he wanted to be on my show because I reviewed his movie about Hillary. He liked the review so much that he put it up on his website, and therefore it had, about 100,000 reposts everywhere. And the next thing I knew, Dinesh was asking if he could be on my show, which was just amazing.
And I saw it in the theater. That was a great, great movie, by the way.
It was a great movie. And in fact, if you go to his website, you can still see my review of his movie up on his site, which is really kind of cool. I've interviewed Michael P. Ramirez a couple times, and we've gotten to be friends, and we still correspond. And people, if that doesn't ring a bell yet,
tell him.
The Pulitzer Prize-winning cartoonist, who I think is the best political cartoonist in the world. And
absolutely.
He's brilliant. Yeah, he's brilliant. And what is fun is, the first time I interviewed him, I always think, gosh, I'm not a lawyer like Hugh Hewitt. I haven't had my own TV program. I'm not this, I'm not that. So what can I do? I can do a lot of research and find out everything possible.
Yep.
So when I have people on, I dig up stuff. I had Michael P. Ramirez on, and I said, now I hear that your dad was stationed in Japan and fell in love with your mother there. Would you tell the story? He couldn't believe it. No one had ever asked him about that. He told the love story of his parents, which is kind of cool because his dad had to cool his jets for several years and finally came back, asked the dad for permission, and the dad said, no, you cannot have my daughter. We're a traditional Japanese family. It was an amazing story, and I just laughed, and so many people said, you had him talking about stuff we never heard of. I've interviewed C.J. Box. A lot of people know him. I know him as
one
Chuck.
of my all-time favorite authors. This is where I really enjoy what you do. You do politics, but the other thing that I really enjoy about your show is that you interview a lot of authors, and I love C.J. Box.
He's wonderful. He's wonderful. He's another guy that I did a lot of research to find out different stuff about him. And then afterwards he told me he was amazed because as I read through all his books, like a lot of us that like CJ, we've read all of his books. So as I read through his books, there were certain quotes that just hit me that I loved. And Hugh hadn't asked about him. So when I had him on, I'm bringing up all his other previous books in the Joe Pickett series, and I said, this is a quote that I loved. Afterwards, he told me, Tammy, that was amazing. No one's ever brought up that many books and those quotes, and I even like those quotes, and I wrote them, and I'd forgotten about them. And so it was really fun. But that's something I did learn from Hugh, is that I read the books before I interview the authors, and believe it or not, I'm actually on the top-tier list of Simon & Schuster. So the guy that took over for Vince Flynn, I get all his books firsthand, and I'll have him on the show soon. A lot of the people that they have at Simon & Schuster, they're constantly pitching me every week. So I am now on the publicist list of about 4 different publicists in the nation. Oh, one of my favorite interviews was just recently. That was Elbert Guillory. A lot of people know who he is.
Oh, yes.
The black guy down in Louisiana that changed from the Democrat Party, and the guy is amazing.
I bet he was a hoot.
He was wonderful. And before the end of the show, because he told me before we went on air that his kids and grandkids had been Googling me all day to find out more about me. He came before the show. He said, Tammy, I tell you what, after everything I've read a bunch of your articles all day long today. You are my hero, girl. And I thought, oh my goodness, I couldn't believe he said that. I was so choked up I didn't even want to go on air. And then before we ended the show, he said that I was his hero, and thanks for having him on. And I've had Al Robertson on of the Robertson family. They've become friends of mine. Great family. So, I mean, it's just been a real blessing. And I just am kind of amazed at all these people I've gotten to know. How much fun is that?
Well, it's a ton of fun, and that's one of the reasons that I really enjoy your show, is the fact that you don't stick to just one particular topic. You expand things quite a lot. We got about a minute left. We've been talking to Tami Jackson, who's the editor-in-chief of Saving Our Future. She's on the Tami Jackson Show. So to reiterate, again, Tami Jackson, Tammy J, where can we find you and read you?
Okay. On Twitter at Tami J, Tamij. People can, you'll see me there. There's a story behind the tiara and all that kind of jazz. But anyway, there's a flag. There's me. There's a tiara on my head. It's goofy, but that's what I look like. And then at barbedwire.com, editor-in-chief there. And my show is at the405media.com every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific time for an hour. It's a lot of fun, and I love listening, hearing from people. And by the way, BZ, I have had people come up to me in airports that either recognize me or I've had people recognize my voice. And in fact, I went to a job training not too long ago, and there was a fellow there that was a former Special Forces guy that was a business owner now, and I started talking, and he said, wait a minute, you're Tammy J of the Tami Jackson Show. And I said, yeah. And he goes, I know your voice. I'd know it anywhere. I said, you know me? He says, I've listened to you for years now, and all my buddies in the service listen to you. So that was crazy.
Tami Jackson, thank you ever so kindly for coming on. Got a question for you. Can we have you again?
Oh, please do. I always love talking with you, and I'm sorry I gabbed so much, but obviously people now know why they finally put a microphone in front of me.
Well, see, the cool thing about this show is it's an introduction. Now we know who you are. Now, if I come back, then we can talk about a whole host of all sorts of different topics. But I wanted to talk to you tonight to get a background, who you are, where you're going, that sort of thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have been talking to Tami Jackson. She is a fabulous interviewer. You've got to listen to her. Thanks, folks. Specifically, thank you, Tami, for being on tonight. And trust me when I tell you, we are going to have you back if you will have us in the saloon.
I'd love to be back. I love you, BZ, and it's always fun to talk to you.
Thank you ever so kindly. Folks, that's it at this point. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon on the SHR Media Network. It was a great time talking to Tami Jackson. If you want to contact me, however, you can find me on Twitter at bzep, on my blog. Yes, go to my blog. How would you spell blog? B-L-O-G-E? No, that's like bloge. Go to my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. My original intro music is by Possessed Tranquility at ReverbNation.com. Trust me, I will be consulting with my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team in a short while. God bless, take care, be safe, come back, please, to the Saloon next Tuesday. You have a fabulous weekend. Stay cool. Holy moly.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Good night, Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night.